We are live. Hello, and welcome to the Wooden Ball Show. I'm your host, Dave Ball, also known as Blinston on Reddit and at Blinston1 on Twitter. Like always, I'm joined by Blake, who is known as at ShatMyKirk on Twitter and BewTownBomb on Reddit. Today we are joined by John and Amber. You can follow John on Twitter at @jfazzle and on Reddit at the same name. And you can follow Amber on Twitter at 00hex and on Reddit as Karis. I think I pronounced that correctly.
Close
So how
enough.
you all doing?
Doing fine. How you doing?
Doing good. You all excited for the off season to almost be over?
Absolutely. Even
We're in
watched the
the final
preseason football tonight.
Yeah, preseason's on football tonight, isn't it?
I don't know what this off season is. I watch hockey all summer because I watch other leagues.
Oh, yeah, you're into that Australian thing, aren't you?
And New Zealand, yeah.
Or New Zealand. You're one of those people.
Is it bad that we're the only team that actually has an Australian player and I have not watched a single AIHL game?
Well, he's not there anymore, so you don't really have to watch him.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I just feel like I should support his league, you know?
I
Well-
guess. Didn't they sell out one of their They're like the tournament they had down there or something?
Yes. Pretty sure they did.
Yeah, it was like the Canada-US game. They sold it out completely or something.
Yeah, a lot of their league games get sold out because they have limited capacity, but also because they have really, really good fan bases.
Okay, so I guess we'll head right into the first topic, which it kills me to have to speak about this. Kimmo Timonen has been put on the shelf in Philly. He has blood clots in his right leg and in his lungs, and he's probably most likely out for the season. This is a horrible way for him to end his career, because he signed a one-year deal worth $2 million, and this is basically how he's going out now. Ugh.
That really sucks.
I have no words for that. That's just awful, awful luck.
Especially with, like, I mean, you would never wish anything like this on another player whatsoever. But he is one of the nicest, one of the greatest, and like, I hate the word classy, but he's a really classy player. And for it to happen to him, of all people, especially with how our defense is, he is our best defenseman, but... Ugh.
Well, you can thank Homer for that, but, you know, just got something looking up in management at least.
Well, Homer stocked up the defensive prospects a lot recently. We have a really deep defensive prospect pool that should be ready within the next couple of years.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, we have some huge people coming up. I mean, if you've seen Shane Gostisbehere, he was +7 in the Final Four, in the college Final Four. He's +7 in the final game, and +11, I think, in the 2 Final Four games they had. So he's going to definitely be a big player for them. And because of the Kimmo Timonen injury, we signed Michael Del Zotto for 1 year for $1.3 million. So it's basically a 1-year deal, low risk, high reward type deal. What do you guys all think about that?
Well, I mean, hopefully it works out for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't hope it works out, but, you know.
Yeah, anything that can help your team get into the playoffs again.
It might.
Yeah. What do you think, Blake?
Well, you know, I think all I really have to say is I just hope that the Flyers organization will somehow find a way to give Timonen what he deserves, and that's, ending his career there in Philadelphia with style.
Oh, they will.
That would be nice.
He's won the Barry our Best Defenseman award for the past 3 years. He's universally loved in this city. They will give him a clap no matter what, even if he has to stand in the tunnel to receive it. But it's such a horrible way for him to go.
The fact that Philly claps for him is amazing in and of itself. You guys hate everybody.
We love our players, thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
If you give your heart... What was that, John?
You hate yourselves.
We don't hate our... Well, we love our players, thank you very much. We are very good to our own players if they're not, being extremely bad. If they're trying their hardest, we love them.
I think Brizgalov would like a word.
He wasn't trying his hardest.
Uh-huh.
He started off the season so well, but then stopped being good. And people say that's 'cause Chris Pronger went down, but no, he stopped being good before Chris Pronger went down.
All those people that have been bought out and traded would like to have a word with you.
Well, Briere wasn't worth his cap hit anymore. Brizgalov was never gonna be worth his contract.
Oh, that contract was dumb in the first place, but
Yeah, you don't sign a goaltender for 9 years.
Hartnell would like to have a word with you.
That we don't understand. Carter, we got a good trade-off for Carter, so I can say yes to that. I mean, you can't say no to Jakub Voracek and Sean Couturier. Looking back on it, you can't really say no to that. Mike Richards got us Wayne Simmons, who is a very good player.
Yeah, he is.
It all makes sense in the end why we did it. I still don't understand Luke Shen JVR, so we're not gonna cover that.
Write the narrative that makes sense for your team. Do it.
Yeah. Well, so I guess we're gonna go into interview now. We have the Capitals interview up first, so that is you, John. You ready for this?
I hope so.
So for the first question, normally I ask how much did you cry during this past season, but with you I decided how much did you drink because of this season?
It was an excessive amount, and well, I mean that's obvious anyway. But yeah, it was. I'm killing like maybe a fifth a night. No, not quite that much. But, yeah, no, it was not fun.
Yeah. And what do you think your biggest problem was for this past season?
Besides Adam Oates,
Yeah, besides him.
really we're not strong enough defensively. That's been a little bit fixed in the offseason. But last year we were just not strong enough defensively. We relied too much on the power play. We didn't pick up anything on even strength, and yeah, it's when you're letting in 2-3 goals a night, leaving your goaltender out to dry, and then blaming the goaltender for it. That's a problem.
Yeah.
So
I understand that completely. Yes, it is.
yes, I bet you do.
And looking back on the season, what do you think was the best thing that happened because of this season? Besides Adam being fired.
Best thing, besides Fitz being fired, best thing about the season is this season exposed a lot of holes for us. I know there are several people on NHL Network and on NBC Sports who want to convince you that our goaltending is the biggest problem. That is not the case. I think most of our management realizes that we have problems elsewhere, specifically defensively, which I'm sure we're getting to in a few minutes. And, I mean, there really just has been – it seems like we're trying to go for something where we're going to try to be more balanced, at least on the second line on down. We were very top-heavy this year.
Okay.
First line was very top-loaded, and then when things weren't working, we put people like Jay Beagle on the first line to try to even things out, which was clearly not the answer. So yeah, I think it's something where we can try to find some balance. Oates has refused to split up the Brouwer and Like line, the black hole line, as Rush Machine calls it, which was clearly not working the entire season. But it's something where I think we've kind of tried to figure that out and try to split things up a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. It seems like you had a lot to look for. I guess you had a lot to look forward to in the future because you have a new management now. You have a new coach. You also have a few new players on your team that came from this offseason.
Yes.
New players: Matt Niskanen, Justin Peters, and Brooks Orpik.
Yeah.
And just as a note, we're getting to the Brooks Orpik contract in a little bit. But what are your thoughts on the 3 big signings you guys had?
Overall, I like it. It speaks very much win now. We're paying big for short-term payoff. I think the Niskanen contract, we actually signed him for a lot less than we probably could have, given what he was apparently asking for prior to free agency. So, I think the Niskanen contract was good. Justin Peters will be good for us. He's a reliable backup that'll help out while Grubauer develops a little bit longer in Hershey. And Orpik, well, yeah, we'll get to that in a minute.
With the Niskanen contract, it was a 7-year deal. I think that was a little bit too long for him because, in all honesty, he's only really had one good season, which was this contract year.
I think it was a big gamble. It's a very high risk but very high reward potential. So, I think it was a bit extensive, but, he was going to probably demand nothing less than 7 years. So I think, honestly, it was overall a good contract, and he was going to probably ask for a higher cap hit if he was going to take a lower deal in terms of length. So I actually think it was overall a good signing. I actually expected us to pay a lot more for him.
Yeah, you only had to pay 5.75, which if he plays up to the year he just had is, I guess, about what he would have gotten on the open market. If he continues to
Yeah,
play
absolutely.
that way.
I think it would have been. I think it's actually really good in terms of that. I was expecting us to pay upward of 6.5.
I think that's what he was kind of asking for. A lot of people were saying.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you would have had to pay that if you had him take a couple less years, as you said.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens. Hopefully, it doesn't work out for you. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Well, you know.
Personally. And so one of the big things, you guys fired Adam Oates and you hired Predators coach Barry Trotz, who is known for his defensive system in Nashville. Do you think this was a good move for you guys? Do you think he's going to help you on your defensive side with that?
I think it was a great move. He's absolutely going to help us on our defensive side. But what a lot of people overlook is that everyone talks about him as a very defensive-minded coach.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because that's what he's had to work with for the last several years, especially when Nashville's actually been good. He doesn't have the offensive talent to really push an offensive system. So I think he's been forced into a defensive system, and it actually worked out very well for Nashville for a couple of years. And now I think with that mindset in mind, he can actually make a much more balanced team and a team that can actually push for a cup.
Mm-hmm. I know he's used to having that big, defenseman of Shea Weber on his back line. You guys don't have a Shea Weber type. Do you think that might hurt him because he's so used to that after having him for many, many years?
I suppose it's possible. I feel like that, one defenseman does not a team completely make, because, I mean, every team has to work around its star player, but you also have to work with a lot of those other players in there. I mean, we obviously have Ovechkin, but, when you work with our lower lines, you have to try to teach them to score even though they don't have that kind of talent. So when you have a defenseman like Weber's not going to be out there the entire game. He's going to be out there a lot of it, but it's not going to be the entire time. So you still have to work with the players individually to try to make them fit that kind of mindset of the team, and I think that's a good thing. Also, from what I understand, everyone from Smashville has been calling him a player's coach, where he really works individually with players to work on, and just really is very individually involved.
Okay.
To help them try to develop as players, and everyone seems to love him. Also, Joel Ward has a personal relationship with him, so that always helps as well.
Yeah, that does help. So now it's time for the Orpik contract. What are your true feelings on the 5-year deal? I think it was.
It was a 5-year deal. It was $5.5 million for each year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hate the contract. That said, a Penguins blog a couple weeks ago came out with a report that, first of all, despite what we've heard about Niskanen and about him, us being the best deal, the Red Wings apparently offered him more than we did, and he came to us specifically because Orpik was here. And with Orpik here, yeah, it was a bad deal, but apparently the Avalanche also offered him more, according to that same report. So I'm really wondering what the Avalanche actually offered him, because that is just insane to me. Yeah, Orpik's obviously he's starting to get to the downside of his career. He's lost a step since a couple years ago when he got concussed, and he's not the same player he was than when he played for the U.S. in the Olympics 4 years ago. I'm okay with it in the short term. In the long term, I think it's going to hurt us.
Yeah, I mean, he's only 33 years old, which I guess is young in a sense. So.
In a sense, especially for defensemen, that's still
young. He still has a lot of career left, but when it's done, he's going to be 38, and who knows what he's going to be like then.
Yeah, that's really the issue. It's just how old he's going to be once that contract comes up, and the fact that he does get injured fairly frequently. So.
I mean, just last year he had that massive concussion from the Boston situation. So.
Yep, exactly.
So yeah. What's next?
So we'll see. It's I don't like the contract, but I'll accept it if it's something where we're pushing for a cup now, and
I mean, you guys your team is kind of trending upwards more so than the Red Wings, which I guess is why he picked you guys over them.
Mm-hmm.
So. Yeah. Next is, do you think the new coach will keep Jay Beagle on your top line, Will he understand that
Absolutely.
Backstrom is at best at that position?
Yeah, no, that was one of the most baffling decisions for pretty much all Caps fans, except on Facebook, apparently. Some of them were like, oh, yeah, let's change it up. That's cool. But Facebook is cancer,
Facebook should
so...
not be used as a good medium for sports talk.
Yeah, no, I love Jay Beagle. I really do. I think he is a very great fourth liner.
But not
But-
top line material.
He's not top line material in the least. He's not even third line material. He works his ass off, and I think he's one of the most underrated players that we have. But yeah, I love him to death. But yeah, he is not top line material. It's just not the way he plays.
Mm. Okay, and Braden Holtby has been kind of average since his first appearance in that playoffs a few years ago. Do you think the true Holtby is what we're going to see this season, or are we going to expect? Do you think that's the true Holtby, kind of average? Or do you think we're going to see more from him this upcoming season, now that he has more of a defense in front of him?
It really depends on what Mitch Korn does with him, now that we brought him in as our goalie coach and replaced Kolzig. Here was the big problem with Kolzig. Kolzig kind of made him start sitting back in the net and to just kind of not play his game. Holtby's always been a very aggressive goalie. He likes to come out of the net. He likes to challenge people. And that's something that Kolzig kind of tried to scale back with him. And a lot of that had to do with Adam Oates' orders as well. When he's allowed to play his game, yeah, he's going to let in a really bad goal once in a while. But overall, the product is going to be good. So if Korn is everything that I think he's going to be, I think we're going to see more of the old Holtby. I think he's going to be just fine. He's going to be able to play his game and not have to worry about, playing something he's uncomfortable with.
Okay. So, what do you think you're going to be your top line? I think it's still going to be Brooks Lake, Backstrom, and then Ovechkin?
Most likely that's what we're looking at right now. They've had talk of Brouwer possibly replacing Lake. It's just kind of up in the air right now. So it just kind of really depends. Might depend on the night, but, right now Lake is the number one contender to play that right wing position.
Okay. And you're still going to have Johansson on their second line center, I'm guessing?
Yeah, I guess. I'm really not sure at this point. They've also been talking about moving Fair up to the second line, which I'm not sure I like, but if they move him up to the second line, they'll switch Fair back to wing, which is always a good thing. But he's done great as our third line center, and yeah, I'm not completely sold on Mojo as our center, so okay. I don't know. We'll see.
Do you think Mike Green's going to refine the form that he once had a couple years ago when you guys won the President's Trophy?
No, he'll never hit that point again. I think he can still be an effective hockey player, and I think he can still do well for this organization if used correctly. Biggest problem is right now he's been paired with Dmitry Orlov, who has always been billed as a defensive defenseman, but he's really not that defensive. I mean, he is... he fires the puck quite a bit for a defensive defenseman.
Okay. So,
and Green needs someone who's going to be able to complement him and, be a stay-at-home guy, because Green is not that guy by any means. No one's ever accused him of that.
And that's why Orpik was brought in then, to kind of work with him then.
Sorry, say that one more time?
Do you think that's why Orpik was brought in, to kind of be the defensive defenseman for Mike Green?
It's entirely possible. I mean, I'd like to see it, just to see what happens. Yeah. If we can get the right offer for him, I mean, his contract is pretty high, so that cap hit's going to really hamper us for the next year if we can't offload him for this year. But his contract's up in a year, so, if it's just this 1 year, I think we could probably accept it and just see what happens.
Oh, the Brooks Orpik contracts? It's what?
Oh, no, Green's contract.
Oh, it's on a 2015.
Yeah, we're not offloading Orpik's contract, but I'd be definitely willing to see how it works out with Orpik and Green pairing up together.
Okay. So that's kind of what I have for the current season we just had. Now for my favorite session of questions of the next season that's going to be coming up. How do you personally feel about this next season coming up? First off.
I feel actually really good. I feel like we haven't really lost any pieces. Grabowski was obviously very good for us, and I'm really pissed that he didn't, come back. But that said, I'm over it, water under the bridge, and I really think other than that, we haven't lost anything significant. We have a lot of young guys coming up through our prospect pool, and to be honest, I mean, this season this team last year that missed the playoffs really isn't that much different than the team 2 years ago that was doing actually pretty well. Yeah, they underachieved a little bit, but they really weren't all that bad. In the year before, we actually did pretty well towards the end of the season. So I think we still have the talent there. I just think it was just time for a change.
Yeah. Do you think the loss of Dustin Penner is going to hurt you guys at all?
Do I think what?
The loss of Dustin Penner, do you think it's going to hurt you guys at all?
To be honest with you, it's probably not, because we never used him to what his capability would be. I mean, if we had used him up to his capability, probably would have done well. I mean, he was playing on the top line in Anaheim, and they were killing it. But
yeah,
I mean, we had him sitting on our fourth line, just babysitting the rookies, like we had with Martin Erat before that, who we obviously traded because we were sitting him on our fourth line, babysitting our rookies. So
yeah, doesn't seem like a job for Dustin Penner at all.
No, it doesn't. I mean, that's one of the most baffling things about Oates. We just had no idea. I think he made his lines while he was drunk or something.
Sounds about right. So you're feeling optimistic about this season. So you think you're going to be buyers of the deadline, or do you think you might still be sellers?
We will be buyers of the deadline. My big hope is that this year I don't have to hear as much goalie talk at the deadline. But I think our defense is immensely better than it was last year. We haven't lost that much on offense. We've lost a little bit, but we haven't lost that much. And our defense is undoubtedly better than it was at the deadline last year. And our goaltending has really not changed at all. I mean, it's still where it was.
You got lost Neuwirth as your backup. I think he was your backup.
Yeah, I mean that's gonna be a loss. We'll see how Peters does as our backup. It's always possible that we bring Grubauer back up, because Grubauer played up with us a lot of last season, and he did very, very well. It's a small sample size. He was his first time coming up, and he was only here for about 20, 30 games, somewhere in there. But I mean, honestly, Neuwirth was a large cap hit. We couldn't really afford the roster we have if we hadn't offloaded that contract, and we still got a pick out of Halak out of that. So
that's good. Yeah, I mean, with I forget what I was gonna say now. Wow. So I'm just gonna forget my question. What do you think so you think you're gonna get back to the playoffs this year? That's your timetable for it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Which team do you think you're gonna replace to get into the playoffs?
Ooh. That's a good question. I want to say Columbus, but I think Columbus has taken a step up in the offseason. Honestly, I want to say either you guys or the Rangers. I think the Rangers grossly overachieved this season. They did incredible in the playoffs, but I think they overachieved. But it really remains to be seen. So I would say either you guys or the Rangers.
I mean, it could be the Red Wings.
Oh, it could be the Red Wings. I'm not even thinking about the new format, too.
The wild card, yeah, you got to think about that.
Yeah, it very well could be the Red Wings. Actually, that's a good call.
Because who knows how they're going to do. I mean, they're getting older. They haven't really done anything with their roster, so.
They haven't done much, but they actually have gotten younger in the offseason, so that's always something to be concerned about. They've offloaded some of their old guys. They've also kept a lot of their old guys, but they're starting to bring in some of their prospect pool a little bit more, so. They could start getting dangerous again. I just don't know if it's going to be next year.
But they won't have Goose doing the same, 30% goals.
Oh, definitely not. He's going to regress. He's going to regress like hell.
And so this is probably going to be an easy question for you. Who do you think is going to score the most goals on your team next year?
Oh, I can't imagine who this is going to be. I'm going to just go out on a limb and say Ovechkin.
Yeah. And who do you think is going to score the most points?
I would say Backstrom, as long as we keep him up on that top line again with him. Backstrom has just always been his feeder until this year, even though he still had the most points. But, I mean,
until Jay Beagle.
Yeah, as long as it's not Jay Beagle playing the first line center, we're good.
And now my favorite question to ask. Say everything goes to shit, and you lose almost all your games, and everything just is bad. Who is going to be thrown under the bus for your team?
By the media, it's going to be Ovechkin, because that's who immediately always gets thrown under the bus by the media. And then most fans will probably follow. The fans who actually pay attention, it really depends on what happens. I would say, I think we still have Kelly, huh? No, Kelly I think left.
I believe so.
I believe he stepped down.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Penn's old assistant, defensive coach stepped in.
Okay.
So yeah, I would say it's probably going to be the coaching staff if everything goes to shit this year.
Really, in their first year, they're gonna blame all them.
It's possible.
Oh wow.
This fan base is very, very, very fickle.
I was very acidic, I'm guessing.
Yeah, we're an interesting bunch. I mean, I love our fans. We're great. But there are certain fans, and they're very outspoken fans, and then the media especially fuels this because, like I said earlier, our media does not really pay attention to hockey until the playoffs start. And then when the playoffs start, they have a ton of opinions. I've heard Trade Ovechkin, I've heard Trade Ovi, I've heard Trade Backstrom, I've heard Trade Green a lot. They just all of a sudden just jump on whoever is a high-profile name. There was one of our radio hosts a couple years ago said, right after we beat Boston, the defending Stanley Cup champions, and lost to the Rangers, said, you know what? I don't think Holtby's at the same level as Lundqvist. And I don't think we're going to win a cup with him. Holtby was 21.
Of course he's at the level of Lundqvist.
Exactly.
Lundqvist is the best goaltender
I
in
don't
the
think
world.
he can win us a cup. So, and that's immediately what I think of. So people are going to throw players under the bus. So I think that's really just what it's going to be. It really depends on which way the media goes with it.
Wow, I can't believe someone said that about a 21-year-old.
Yeah, it was interesting.
I mean, of course, you can't compare a goalie to Lundqvist. First off,
Yeah.
That's just not something you do.
Yeah, our media is insane when it comes to hockey. They literally don't cover it all season, and then playoffs roll around and they think they're experts. But
Yeah. So that's actually everything I have for you now. So thanks for joining us.
thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun talking to you. Blake, unmute yourself, and Amber.
All right.
Okay.
See you around.
See you around.
Hello. Hello again, faithful listeners. Thanks again to John for joining us, who has since departed this hangout, which is a shame. I did have a couple questions for him that a particular host missed out on asking. Cough, cough. Once again, to recap, this is the Wooden Ball Show. Your views of the Washington Capitals, or you have just heard an overview of the Washington Capitals. Next up, we transition now into the playoff teams, and we begin with the lovely Amber joining us with the Dallas Stars.
Playoffs teams. Ouch, Blake. Hit people where it hurts.
Oh well. Now, I'm going to like this one. For those of you that don't know, I live in the north central Texas area, so I follow the Dallas Stars very well. I'm fairly familiar with them, at least I like to think I am, so, this might be just more of a chat with two people than an interview. It's going to be great. Are you ready, Amber?
I'm never ready, but let's go anyways.
Oh, okay. Me neither. Ask Dave. Me neither.
He is never ready for anything.
Oh,
We
no.
know.
Oh, no.
But I like
Oh.
flying by the seat of my pants, so let's do this thing.
Yes. Okay, so we're going to start out kind of introducing us to the Stars in the season and postseason that was. We'll begin with the season. It was a slow start at first. I believe you guys were even in the bottom of the Central Division rankings at one point in time. But all of a sudden, something goes on in the locker room. Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin, they turn it up on the ice there, and then on a fan appreciation night there, the Dallas Stars clinch that final playoff spot and make it into the playoffs. That was the high point of the season. I guess just go over all the other important details of this regular season there.
Well, I mean, getting off to the slow start, Kari being injured at the beginning of the season really didn't help us that much. I mean, Dan Ellis tried, and he did a good job sometimes, but the team just kind of falls apart without Kari behind them, or was falling apart at the beginning of the season. We started getting a little better, and then in December we had between November and January really, we had issues. Obviously Robidaw breaking his leg. We played defenseman roulette. It was crazy and not really that much fun to watch, except when we did well. And then Chiasen got sick, and then January happened, and we're just going to pretend January didn't happen, because January was really bad. We lost games that baffled literally everyone, except for the teams getting excited to beat us, like the Islanders, and somehow occasionally managed to beat teams that were really shocking. We started catching up before the Olympic break, and I think Jamie, especially going to the Olympics for Canada for him, really helped him out. Like, he's had a phenomenal year. He stepped up as captain really well. His on-ice chemistry with Tyler Seguin is just mind-blowing to watch live or on television. And the way he's stepped up and really working with the team and what he's doing is just, it's really fun to watch. I mean, I loved Brendan Morrow when he was our captain, but watching Jamie is just so exciting as captain. So post-Olympic break, we did pretty well. Acquired Tim Thomas at the trade deadline for Dan Ellis. Moved Robidaw to the Ducks. And did pretty well. We had a couple of missteps along the way to trying to squeeze into that last wild card spot, but we managed to do it. And we managed to do it without having to take it to the very last game of the regular season. Thank you, hockey gods, because that never works well for us. And then we played the Ducks and gave them more of a run for their money than I think people were expecting us to, but ultimately kind of shot the bed for that last game and ended up letting them move on.
And I hear you about Jamie. I kind of think he's one of those lead by example captains, definitely. And he's so young for his role too. He's definitely going to be a mainstay for the Stars for years to come.
Yeah, I mean, he just turned 25, so he's in the prime of his hockey life right now. And it's lovely. I don't think I can talk enough about how much I have enjoyed seeing Jamie Benn evolve this past season. Like, he's always been fun to watch, but he just so much better to watch this year.
And now we move on into the playoffs, play the Anaheim Ducks there. Well, the first two games didn't go so well, but then the next two games went pretty well. But that last game, though, yeah. But
that
I guess
last
just,
game was a heartbreaker.
Yeah.
Because we could have done it. We could have, and we should have forced a Game 7. But there are so few of the guys that had ever even seen playoffs. And they needed that experience, and they got that experience. And ultimately, I think that playoff experience will hopefully help push them to the next level in their regular season games. Because especially with some of the changes that have happened in the Western Conference this year as far as team makeups, we're going to need to keep that level up to be a competitor.
I kind of think that what ultimately led to the Stars' downfall was A, the team being so very young and not having a whole lot of playoff experience, and B, I kind of felt that through most of the season, at least, they were a very one-dimensional team, I guess. It was just Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, whoever happened to be joining them on that line. Mostly it was Nichushkin. Sometimes it was Chason, I believe. And but that was really about it, kind of for the offense there. Would you agree with those statements?
Oh yeah, we had some real issues with depth scoring, and it wasn't all the time. But the times we were doing worse is when our depth scoring was not kicking in. It was the Sagan and Ben show, and as lovely as that show is, we also need to have, the Fiddler show and the Horkoff show and, everyone else on the team contributing. And there were times where it just wasn't happening. Goals weren't going in the net, passes weren't connecting, whatever. And when they did step up, especially the Roussel, Eakin, Garbett line, when they would step up and they would contribute, our games were so much better, and we won a lot more, and it worked so much better. So that's a big thing next season, is if we don't have that depth scoring that we need, which hopefully we will with Spezza and Hemsky, but if we don't have that, then it's not going to be a good time to watch.
And I also think that with the Texas Stars winning the Calder Cup there, there's a little bit more of that winning experience, kind of waiting in the wings there for the Stars.
Oh, definitely. Some of that Calder Cup team has moved on to other things, but having those guys get that experience, especially those really young guys like Radek Faksa and Philippe Desrogers getting to watch, and even him getting his playoff time with the Q, that's going to help them going forward, and it's going to help the whole organization going forward.
Okay, and now continuing our look back into the previous season, we'll do a team breakdown. We'll talk about the different aspects of the team, the different units, and talk about just talk about those units. And we'll start with the offense. As we mentioned, it was mainly just the Ben and Sagan show there. Sometimes you get the Roussel, Eakin, Garbett line going there, but other than that, I guess it was just a huge lack of depth scoring there through most of the season, at least. But that's kind of what I know about the offense. What about you?
Yeah, there's a lot of, obviously Jamie and Tyler ran the show, and Val helped out a little bit and then didn't really help out. Eakin, as much as I love the Garbett, Eakin, Roussel line, they're really not they wouldn't be a second line on other teams, and that they had to be a second line on our team last year says a lot about our lack of true depth in our forwards last year, because when they were able to be on the third line, they usually connected so much better, and they usually did so much better in their face-offs. And they did admirably as a second line, but not as admirably as we needed them to do. And some of the guys that we pulled in to be, our second line, our third lines, our fourth line, just didn't. Some of it was newness. Some of it was just not connecting well. And I don't know if they didn't connect well because the lines got juggled or what was going on, but it just wasn't working out. It was a little disappointing at times. A lot disappointing at times, actually.
Alrighty, and next is the defense. Of course, the two big defensive stars there, Goligoski and Daly, and below them, you have Gonchar, who I do believe I could quote you as saying he's just basically Nichushkin's translator.
Well, that's not just me. That's a lot of people say that, and I like Gonchar, but Gonchar did not do nearly as well as we needed him to do last year.
Mm-hmm. And then with Robidaw being hurt, it was basically just, as you mentioned, a defensive carousel going on there. I'm kind of go more in depth on the defensive unit there.
Okay, so obviously, Daly and Goligoski, when Goose was clicking, the whole team was doing well. When Goose was not doing well, the whole team sucked. And I hate to say it like that and put it on one person like that, but the worse he played, it seemed like the worse everyone around him played. Like, the defensive miscues just got worse, and then the forwards would fall apart, and then they'd hammer Kari or whoever was in the net for the night so hard that inevitably things went through. Because, law of statistics, it's eventually going to hit the back of the net. You can't save everything. And then Brendan Dillon is going to be a really good defenseman if he keeps getting better. He is already so much fun to watch. He's a fan favorite. And he does really well most of the time, but he's only 23, and you can tell at times that he is young and he's still a little green. Jordy Ben did very well this season for the fact that he went undrafted. He worked his way up from the CHL into the AHL and then into the NHL. And he's a solid player. He's maybe not as elite as some of the other defensemen, but he did pretty well most of the season. He had some really big bloopers, but that was kind of like the Dallas Stars season in a nutshell. It was flashes of brilliance and then little train wrecks and car smashes. Our other one, we ended up pulling Kevin Connaughton up, and we had the carousel. We had Jamie Alexiak up, and Big Rig is like 6'7". He is a huge guy, and he weighs a little bit more than Nichushkin. He's a little bit taller, and he's a defenseman. And in the AHL, he hits like a truck, but in the NHL, he seemed really shy and timid, so he ended up going back down to the AHL, which worked for him. But we pulled up Kevin Connaughton instead, and Kevin did good most of the time, but there were other times where it was really, really obvious that he was a rookie. And then, of course, there was Aaron Rome, and, well, I'm glad we used the buyout on Aaron Rome. I wanted to love him, but he's it just didn't work.
And going back to the playoffs, one thing I noticed, and one thing I think the Stars hockey media at least made sure you noticed, was, despite having Goligoski and Daly still there, the team was really missing Brendan Dillon, who was out with an injury.
Yeah. Brendan and Jordy were paired a lot together, and they play well together. Not all the time. Sometimes they mess up, but they play well together, and it's the pairings for the playoffs just didn't seem to connect as well. And part of that was, we pulled Patrick Nemeth up from the AHL, and Nemeth did a good job, but he was green. In a normal season, normal playoffs, everyone healthy, he probably would have been pulled up, but he probably would have been sitting on the bench watching. And so he was playing, and he and Gonchar did okay together, and it was actually very telling that we ended up benching a healthy Rome for an AHL call-up. That says a lot about how Rome was playing. And Dillon healthy probably would have helped out more. Might have pushed us to a Game 7. might have pushed us into the second round, but we'll never know for sure.
Okay, and now we'll move on to the goaltending from the past season. As you mentioned, the team got off to a slow start at first, but you could mainly attribute that to Kari Lettinen being out with injury there. But Dan Ellis, the backup at that time, he played well. He did what he had to do, and kept them, competitive at least. But he gets injured again, kind of late in the season, and Tim Thomas comes in, the guy that was traded for Dan Ellis, and it felt to me that Thomas did. He did what he had to do, and then a little bit more. The Stars were still very, very much competitive during that wild card race there, but then again, that could be a case of the team in front of him making him look better, but that at least that's what it felt to me. What was your take on the goaltending?
Well, Kari is obviously a solid goaltender. I mean, anyone who wants to argue about that can come fight me. But Kari is a solid goaltender. He does a good job. We had to rely on him too hard. Like, I know he doesn't like to take nights off, supposedly, and there are other starting goaltenders that don't really like to take nights off, but you should have a backup that is competent enough that you can get a rest, especially with as many back-to-backs as we played, those grueling 3 games a week. Being able to have someone take a night off in the middle of that is just, if nothing else, to keep you fresh and to keep the person behind you in a competitive mindset and not just a practice mindset. So Dan Ellis did better than I think a lot of fans give him credit for, because some of the nights when he was between the pipes, the team just the defense would just shit the bed in front of him, and it's like, how do we even hockey? Why are these guys getting NHL contracts? Level of bad. And there were nights where he would kind of crap out too, but if you're a goaltender and you're maybe practicing and only getting like 1 game every 30, you're probably not going to be the sharpest when you go in. It sucks because you need to be the sharpest when you go in, especially as a backup, but it's probably you're not going to be as sharp as the starter because you're not as mentally ready for it. So Dan did really well in some cases and not so great in other cases. And then Jack Campbell got pulled up early in the season when Kari was injured, and he didn't do great, but then he also spent most of the season injured in the AHL, and he's young, so he'll get better, we hope, and stay healthy. That'd be nice. And then Tim Thomas came in, and he did an admirable job after Kari got concussed on Madonna night in March when we were playing the Wild. And he did an admirable job occasionally as a backup. But then we played Winnipeg. And Kari was still concussed, and Chris Nilstorp was called up as Thomas's backup. And we watched that game, and I just couldn't even believe how poorly he did between the pipes. It's like, you're trying to prove that you still got, NHL caliber staying power inside you, and you're supposed to be this amazing goaltender, and you can't even stop the Jets from scoring on you. And that was terrible. And then, of course, he gets subbed out, and Nilstorp gets subbed in, and Torps did okay, but he didn't do amazingly. So that was our goalie situation. Like, Kari and a train of mediocre or not NHL ready behind him.
Alrighty, and finally in the unit breakdown segment, the coaching. In the off season, the Stars fire Glenn Gulletson, I think.
Something like that.
Okay, and they bring in Lindy Ruff from the Buffalo Sabres. So he comes in, and quite a first season he had there, I believe. And I think one of my favorite, I don't mean to sound like a jerk, but one of my favorite moments from watching, Lindy Ruff as a coach was that very horrible night, almost tragic, in which Rich Peverley had a cardiac event there on the bench, and I guess I was just so amazed as to how Lindy was just getting very involved, just trying to make sure that the health of his player, the well-being of his player there was the top priority. And, that was the moment I knew that Lindy Ruff would be a very, very good coach for the Dallas Stars there. And soon enough, they're in the playoffs.
Yeah, I really love Lindy Ruff's coaching. It's the guys seem to respond to it well. It seems like it works really well for the players we have on the ice for the most part, and the players we have coming up. And you can tell from his post-game interviews, his practice interviews, you can tell that he really cares about the team. He wants the guys to do well. French TV actually did a feature on Antoine Roussel, and they talked to Lindy about him, and this is, before the summer, before they were RFAs, and, he would talk about, things that Roussel was doing really well, and, things that they had talked about that needed to get better, and just his level of commitment to the team is really, really fun to watch, and the team's level of commitment to do well for him is also really fun to watch. He seems like one of those coaches that he gives so much to you that you want to do your best for him in return, because you want him to be successful, and you want yourself to be successful because he's successful as well.
Okay, and to conclude this long-winded, I suppose, I know, discussion of the previous season, there were a couple big miscellaneous events that occurred during the Stars season. I think, if I remember correctly, they both occurred during the same week. If you know what I'm speaking of, Amber, which made for it a very roller coaster of a week there. I am speaking, of course, about the retirement of Mike Modano's number 9 in the rafters, a very special moment there. I think followed soon thereafter by the again nearly tragic moment of Rich Peverley's cardiac arrest there. Do I have the timeline correct there?
They happen near each other, yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll to get the sadness and whatnot, I guess, out of the way, we'll talk about the Peverley situation first. It was during a game against Columbus. I believe Columbus was up in that game, I think.
1-0.
1-0, yes. And if you're watching on the broadcast, I was listening on the radio at the time, but if you're watching on the broadcast, out of the corner of the screen, you'll see the Stars players on the bench, throwing stuff onto the ice, banging their sticks, yelling, all that. They're trying to get the ref's attention. And you notice, you immediately think, there's something really serious going on. Maybe it's like a fan that has a health emergency, but I don't think that's what you expected there. And I think the creepiest, I guess, I'm not sure what word would be best to be used here, but the creepiest moment for me was after all the commotion had ended, and it was just 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes of just dead air. That was very ominous to me, I guess. But I guess just kind of walk us through that situation and your overall thoughts looking back on that situation.
Well, I was actually at the game, and we were sitting down in the 100s and on the same side as the benches, but on the other end. So we as fans on like the corner we were in, we didn't know what was going on at first. All we knew is like some of the guys were like on the ice trying to get the ref's attention by any means necessary. So we weren't sure if someone had gotten injured and they needed to stop play, like maybe somebody got cut by a skate, or if there was some sort of like fighting between the benches going on or what. We had no idea what was going on at first. And so a lot of us tried to tune into the radio broadcast so that we could figure out what was going on. And then it slowly kind of started trickling down. One of the players is injured. One of the players is, and then it's, who is it? Who is it? What's going on? And I have never heard the AAC so quiet in my life with, like, people in it, and I never want to ever hear it that quiet again.
No.
It was really terrifying. And I really respect what our broadcast teams, I'm pretty sure that game was on Fox Sports Southwest that night, and them and the radio and Jeff Kay, our in-arena announcer, I really respect what they did because they could have gone for, up close of the bench and sort of the, like, clickbait factor, but they didn't. Like, there were cameras, but they didn't zoom in on what was going on. And the radio announcers were very, very clear about, we don't know what's going on. We'll let you know what's going on as soon as we know. Just be patient. And Jeff Kay was doing the same thing in arena that, someone was injured. We didn't have any more information than that. They'd let us know as soon as they knew something. So it was really, really scary. It was not something I ever want any fan of any sport to ever have to experience for their team or for anyone else's team. But at the same time, our broadcast team, I think, did a very good job of handling it and keeping it respectful and, just keeping involved, but respectfully involved and not jumping all over it like Hollywood paparazzi.
Yeah, of course, Jeff Kay and Ralph and Razor, they did handle it very admirably. I do agree. They could have been very speculative about it. Like when news is very speculative about things, but it was very wonderful. It was a very wonderful sight to see. It was very wonderful sounds to hear during a very very nervous and scary moment there. But definitely at that moment, all of the props goes to that medical staff that was at the AAC at that time. It was just a very immediate response. They noticed someone's slumped over on the bench. They whisk him out to an ambulance. They whisk him out to the hospital. They run tests. They do all the stuff that they normally do as a procedure, and he's up and walking and talking and doing all that again.
Oh, absolutely. The medical team at the AAC is top notch. The Dallas Stars medical staff is top notch, and the hospital they work with, UT Southwestern, is also top notch. So they respond quickly. Like, I would never be worried about someone passing out or something at the AAC. That's how good their medical staff is on hand. And that's how quickly they respond, too. They also, I believe, had someone in the crowd that was a nurse or some other sort of medic that ended up helping to attend to him. So props to that person. I have no idea who they are. I don't think anybody but maybe the team does. But props to that person for being amazing.
Mm-hmm. And, we're still, to this day, very glad to see Rich Beverly up and walking and doing normal person activities, most definitely.
Oh, absolutely. I have no idea if he's going to be ready to play this season. I don't think anybody does. Well, nobody does yet. There's nothing official. But if he's on the ice, I will be excited to see him on the ice. If it's not safe for him to be on the ice, I will be excited to see him in any sort of capacity with the Stars that he can be.
Mm-hmm. And, now moving on from that and to the other miscellaneous moment, the more happy moment, the more joyous occasion. That's the retirement ceremony of Mike Modano's number 9, hanging it up in the rafters during the game against the Minnesota Wild. There was, I was just amazed. I really, really wanted to be down at the AAC there that night, that evening. They roll out the red or green carpet. They bring in Modano. They bring in all the people from the 99 Cup team. There's a bunch of speeches from everyone. There's a bunch of tribute videos. And, they bring out Dirk. They bring out Michael Young. They bring out Troy Aikman. And it was just a really special moment for Mike Modano, I think. But, just your overall thoughts on that moment.
Well, I didn't get to go to that game because the tickets for that game were really, really expensive. Like, almost my entire season hockey budget expensive.
Oh, I would imagine, yes.
But it was fun to watch. It was really nice seeing pictures from everyone who got there for all the pre-ceremony things, the green carpet and all of that. And the speeches were nice. Seeing Modano's number in the rafters is lovely, and then playing and beating the Wild afterwards was even better. Even with Kari's concussion. That was the worst part of the whole night.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Alrighty, that we are finally concluded with the looking back at the previous season, ladies and gentlemen. But there is more.
Sorry, Blake and I talk a lot.
When you get us going, it's hard to stop. Okay, let's move into what has happened in the off season so far. The Spezza sweepstakes, I guess you can call it, which in the end was really just between St. Louis and Dallas. But Dallas was the big winners. Not only did they receive the grand prize of Spezza, but they also received a consolation prize of Ales Hemsky, his line mate over at Ottawa. Kind of talk about that move right there and some of the more minor gains and losses from the team so far.
Well, holy crap, we got Spezza and Hemsky. That was awesome. That was like probably the happiest day this off season for me. It kind of sucked that we moved Chie-san and some of our prospects for that, but Spezza is such a gain that I'm going to miss Alex. I love seeing him on the ice. I loved seeing him as a Dallas Star and as a Texas Star. But the return in Spezza is just, it's like, it's such a good return for what we gave up. We gave up Chieson, we gave up good prospects, but Chieson was, unfortunately, he was not one of our best players last season. He had a kind of underwhelming full rookie season last year. And he had been hyped up so much because when he'd come up at the end of the 2012-2013 season, he'd done so well that people expected a lot from him. And he did okay, but he just didn't perform to that level consistently, and it disappointed people. And then he got sick and never really seemed to recover from how sick he got in December. So I wasn't surprised that we traded him. I was surprised that we got Spezza in return, though. I'm really excited to see what Spezza and Hemsky are going to do together on probably the second line. I'm not sure who they're going to have as their left winger, but, you know, whoever it is, you know, whoever works. Maybe Eric Cole. Maybe Ryan Garbett. I don't know. I don't like the idea of breaking up the Roussel, Eakin, Garbett line, but if it works, it works. And, you know, having Hemsky and, like, Spezza finding out during his initial interview that we had also gotten Hemsky, it was really fun to listen to. So I'm very excited to see what our 1-2 line is going to do this upcoming season.
And you know, putting Spezza and Hemsky on the second line there, I definitely don't think that that's more against Spezza and Hemsky than it is for the Dallas Stars. You know, like, say someone would be like, oh, they're on the second line in Dallas. That's not good. But instead, it's more like that's incredible that they're on the second line in Dallas. You know, look at their first line. So I think that those two moves were definitely huge for that lack of scoring depth from the previous season.
Oh, definitely, and it's not a slight against Spezza or Hemsky at all, but they are both 30 or older. So, and Jamie and Tyler are both, you know, still so young. I'm not going to say that. I don't even know if it's going to be a true first line, second line with like a huge disparity between the two. It might end up being something more like a 1A, 1B, where sometimes Spezza, Hemsky is actually the first line, and sometimes they're the second line, and it's however it works out for whomever they're matching up against. Because sometimes you do that. It's just whoever you match up against better. If you can figure, you know, when you can figure those things out. So it'll be really interesting to see, and it's going to be interesting to see who gets to play on, you know, the other wings, or if maybe Hemsky plays on the same wing as Ben and Sagan for a bit, and they put Val with Spezza to see if they can get some good chemistry going. It's really, you know, if they can score, if they can increase our depth, I'm happy with whatever the hell they decide to do.
Alrighty, and now let's look ahead into the off season, and kind of a two-part question. Would you expect to see the Stars front office do something, and does that compare with if you personally would like to see the Stars front office do something?
Do something how? Like more moving, or
yeah, you know, trading, signing people, you know.
Well, there have been a lot of rumors, and some of them come from Mike Heika, who is the primary writer for the Dallas Stars for the Dallas Morning News, about moving Gonchar. But I don't know if it's going to happen. I mean, if we can get the right return for Gonchar, I'd love to see it happen. No offense to Gonch, because he is a good player. He just didn't do well for us last season, and we can't really take the risk that he's going to do well this season. But I don't think we're going to move him at his age and his... I mean, he's only got one season left on his contract, but that's a significant amount of money to pay someone who did not do that well last season and who wasn't that beneficial to us in the postseason. So that might happen. We still have to sign Eakin and Dylan. They've been made offers. They haven't been approved yet. So that's something I'm really, really antsy to see happen because I don't want to see either of them go. Other than that, I don't think we're really going to make any moves. I guess maybe in the right deal I could see us moving Horkoff or Cole, but not real. Like, I don't think it's going to happen. I think our team is pretty well set for what's going to happen for the coming season. Obviously, some of our AHL guys are going to get a shot at, development and rookie camp and possibly in the preseason. But I think, like, our 7th defenseman will probably end up being Patrick Nemeth, and because he did so well towards the end of the season, and he did pretty well in the postseason. And then he did great for the Texas Stars with that whole cup-winning goal and everything. So we'll see what happens. I can't speculate. The other worry is obviously if Peverley is going to be able to play or not. But I think we have a team in place that if he can, that's great, he'll slot in. And if he can't, then we've got guys that can step up.
Alrighty. And now let's look into the draft that took place this off-season. Kind of give us a kind of like a school grade, like B minus, whatever, of how you think the Stars did in the draft, and kind of talk about some of the draft picks that you like.
I think we probably did a solid, A minus, B plus. I'm really harsh on draft grading. It's hard to tell. I'm really excited about Julius Honka, our first round pick. He's fun to watch on the ice. Some of the other guys I haven't seen as much, so it's hard to talk about. We didn't draft him, but we did sign a Henry Caviejo, who's a Finnish baby goaltender, and that's exciting because he's done really well with Kalpa in juniors for Finland. So it's interesting to see, how he's going to progress in the North American stuff.
Alrighty. And now we'll do our look ahead into the next season. The Central Division, this offseason, the Central Division got a lot tougher. St. Louis gets Stastny, Chicago gets Brad Richards, Colorado gets Iginla, Nashville gets Neal, Winnipeg is just Winnipeg, whatever. But the thing to look forward to, I think, is the Central. They got stronger, but the Dallas Stars, they were right there with them. They were getting stronger alongside the Central. With that in mind, how do you see Dallas fitting into the Central race?
I think it's going to depend on how the team gels together, but on paper, there's no reason we can't be right in the thick of things. If Anders Lindback does well as Kari's backup, if he ends up being the backup, because if there's one thing Dallas doesn't have right now, it's a goalie problem, unlike some other teams I could name. But if whoever backs up Kari does well, that's going to help us out. It'll give us a chance to give Kari the occasional night off to recover between long stretches. It will, just take some of the weight off of his shoulders so he doesn't have to put everything in and end up running on fumes by the time playoffs comes around. If Spezza and Hemsky end up being our second line and they connect well, and Roussel, Eek, and Garbutt can just keep up status quo from what they were able to do last season, and our fourth line can contribute anything, that's going to help our scoring a ton because we're going to have a lot of depth. If our defensemen can keep their shit together, they can do a great job. Defense is probably still kind of our weakest area, but if they can keep it together or keep it mostly together, then we're going to be a contender. I'm not going to say we're going to be the top of the league, because that's not necessarily true. I mean, Chicago's got a great team. St. Louis always has a solid team. Iginla is a scary player to play against. I mean, he's a good player. He's fun to watch. If he clicks well in Colorado, they're going to be dangerous, especially if Briere also clicks well, and if Varlamov can keep up with his stuff. The Ducks and the Kings are nothing to sneeze at. Vancouver, especially now that they've got the old Texas Stars head coach and whatnot. I don't know if Vancouver is going to be great, but they can do okay. The Sharks, I'm not really sure what the hell's going on with the Sharks right now, so I'm not sure how they'll end up. But I think Dallas can easily be in the pack. Nashville can keep James Neal. I mean, we didn't keep him for a reason.
Alrighty, and now we conclude this interview with our miscellaneous questions. Now, I normally had kind of like a timetable to the playoffs question for the non-playoff teams, but I'll think of a different variant for playoff teams soon enough. So we'll just skip that one. For the next season, who would you see as the Stars' top goal and points getter?
It's probably going to be Seguin again. I mean, just he can get it to the back of the net. I don't even have to think about that one. Sorry.
Oh yeah. That is true. There's not much else you can say, I think.
No, I mean it might be Jamie, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be Tyler.
I think.
And if we have a sleeper agent in the lineup, I'm not going to complain.
Oh yeah. If you ask me though, with this question, I think I do think it's also going to be Ben and Seguin that's going to get those two accolades, but whichever one gets one thing, the other will get the other. That's how I feel. If Seguin
whoever
gets the most goals,
the other one will get assists.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's very likely.
Oh yeah. Next, who do you see as the top overall player? You can throw in intangibles, you can throw in stats and all that.
God, that's a hard question. We have so many guys that have so much potential that don't necessarily score all the goals, but they set them up or they do well on the penalty kill or whatever. So I think it's maybe gonna again be Seguin or Jamie, but it's so impossible to predict. I mean, Sevier could have a standout full rookie year. Nichushkin could do even better than he did at the beginning of last season. One of our defensemen could break out and have just a crazy year. Kari could, pull on the mantle of Thor and just kill everything and score goals while doing it. There's no way to really tell who's going to make that impact. I'd love to, I like the status quo of Seguin or Ben doing it, but I'd love to see one of our younger guys just break out and have a monster season. I'd love to see Brendan Dillon's season go even better than last season. I'd love to see Eakin and Roussel get even better than last season.
Alrighty, and our favorite question, the final question here. Let's just say that everything that could go wrong does go wrong, and the fans and the media, they're out looking for blood. Who will they get that blood from? Who will be the public enemy number one in their eyes?
Kari already gets a lot of heat, so Kari would be public enemy number one. Probably goaltenders get so much shit when things go bad. Ruff, Coach Ruff would get a lot of it too. And then beyond that, your usual suspects in the defensemen, Gonchar will get heaps of it. Goose, Trevor Daley, and then Spezza, Hemsky, Sagan, and Jamie. Just it'll trickle down, and everyone will get it. It will depend on. Dallas fans are very good about loudly yelling about whoever is doing the worst at a particular time.
Oh.
And if you do poorly consistently enough, you're going to have you're worthless, why do we have you? Like, we had a bunch of people last season that are like, why do we have Goligoski? He's terrible. They were all wrong, but sometimes when you screw up, it's much easier for people to see you consistently screwing up than it is for them to see the little things you do that keep everything together. So it'll trickle down. It'll probably start with Coach and Kari, though.
Alrighty. And that concludes our overview of the Dallas Stars with Amber here. And we are just about ready to wrap things up. Dave, if you would, look at the draft order and kind of tease ahead, see what's up next week.
It will be the Detroit Red Wings and the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Ah, yes, a very exciting one there. The Columbus one will probably be very interesting. You know, they made it to the playoffs, so that's going to be a fun one there. Alrighty. Thank you again to John, who's not here with us now, for talking with Dave here about the Washington Capitals. You can find him on Twitter and Reddit. His username in both locations is jfazel. And thank you, Amber, for talking with me about the Dallas Stars. You can find Amber on Twitter. Her username is 00hex. And you can find her on Reddit. Her username is Karis, something.
Eventually we'll get that right.
Yes,
You were
eventually.
right the first
one
time.
day.
You were
Oh,
right the
yes.
first time, Blake. Good job.
Excellent. Alrighty. For the Wooden Ball Show, I am Blake. You can find me on Twitter. My username is @ShattenMyKirk. You can also find me on Reddit. My username there is btownbomb. And for Dave, you can find Dave on Twitter. His username is Blinson1. And you can find him on Reddit. His username there is Blinson.
I may have just waved to show that was me they were talking about. May or may not have just done that.
Oh, well. Oh, well. For the Wooden Ball Show, once again, you can tune in to us every Thursday evening. We try to start around 6:30 Eastern Standard Time.
Yes.
Yeah,
6:30
5:30 Central Standard Time. For our hockey cast, stay tuned next Monday at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, I believe.
Yes.
Yes, for the Puckin' Awesome podcast, they get you your fix on the latest NHL news, and also somehow some Chris Versteeg fanfics. I don't know how that.
No, we are killing and burying the Chris Versteeg fanfic.
And now it's Janetta and Landeskog. Now that's what's moved up now.
Okay, so that's their topic there. But yeah, tune into the Puckin' Awesome podcast Monday nights, 9:30 Eastern. They'll get you your fix on the in the world of the NHL, and they'll also have a little fun too. It'll be great. And once again, we'll try to get back all our regular programming, maybe even add a couple shows for the upcoming season. So stay tuned for more great things to come at Our Hockey Cast. And for Our Hockey Cast, you can find us on Twitter The username there is at OurHockeyCast. You can find us on Reddit. Our subreddit there is OurHockeyCast, OurHockeyCast. You can find us on our website, OurHockeyCast.com, where you can listen to previous episodes of the Wooden Ball Show, the Puck and Awesome podcast, and if you go back even further, more other shows. And you can do the same thing on our YouTube channel. Our name there is also Our HockeyCast. And that is all our, I guess, the legalese, I guess, we made up for the end of the show. So I believe we are about set to sign off.
I think we are. So have a good night, everybody.